Sarah here from Highland Haven Australian Shepherds and Highland Haven Dog Training, and welcome to episode 7 of Dog for Thought. Joining me is my co-host, daughter, and dog trainer extraordinaire, Sophie.
Hi everyone.
So Soph, give us an update in Dogland. What's been going on?
Nothing much. Meadow's been feeling better, so that's good.
Yep, so if you remember last week, Meadow was puking for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up being just a little gastroenteritis, and as I predicted, they gave her some medicine and she bounced back right away, which was great.
We knew she was back because the barking started again, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly. The annoying behavior started right back up again.
Mm-hmm.
We went through a couple of rolls of paper towels cleaning up the puke, but this is why you don't have rugs in a house full of 9 dogs.
Yep.
Our new house will have no rugs too.
Yep.
That was actually one of the prerequisites when we were looking for houses. The first thing I do is look at the floors.
Yeah, because if there's any rugs, so no, especially white rugs, they won't be white after we're done.
For sure, and it's so expensive to replace rugs with flooring.
It is.
So, and we're excited about the new house with the flooring because, well, it's some crappy like whatever, like the
vinyl flooring
stuff in some rooms, which we're going to end up replacing, and then some sort of old tile in the kitchen. But eventually I want to replace it with that tile that looks like hardwood.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, it's
like,
so
I'm
easy
ridiculously
to clean.
excited. Like they can Scooby-Doo across it and puke on it and, you know, have accidents, and it looks just as good and you never have to refinish it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for that. You get excited for strange things when you're 55. That and hummingbirds, what can I tell you?
Yeah, it's the birds for me. Every 10 seconds, oh, look, there's a bird, Sophie. Okay, Mom. Okay.
All right, so we should probably get started on the episode, no?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have a very special guest today. This is Jennifer from Canine Cardio, which is a dog walking service in New York City. You're located on the Upper East Side?
Correct.
So
Upper East Side and Sutton Place.
Excellent. So you can give us a little background on how long you've been doing this and what got you into it?
Sure. So I'm Jennifer Geishalls. It's Canine Cardio. We started, we're going to go up on 20 years next fall.
Wow.
So
you look hardly old enough to be doing this for 20 years.
Thank you. So we service about 750 walks a week.
Wow. Wow.
So that's about 35,000 a year.
Wow.
And over the 20 years that we've been in business, I think we've serviced about 500,000 walks.
Oh my God.
And we have 90 clients that are all regular clients. So we walk their dogs Monday through Friday, sometimes Monday through Sunday, but the requirement is Monday through Friday. So all of these 90 families, we've really seen their dog pretty much every day, a lot of times for the dog's life.
Sure.
And then sometimes after a dog will pass away, we'll help with that second dog. So we have a unique perspective as the dog walker because we're not the vet that sees them maybe once a month. We're not the trainer that sees them maybe not every day. So we do see these dogs pretty much every day. It's a very close relationship. But we walk up to 3 dogs per walker. We think it's really important that socialization is important. We don't like doing solo walks. Because we think it's great for training. Sure. But the dogs need a friend and dogs that they know to be consistently walk with every day. So
I think some of the old timers that are listening probably imagine New York City dog walking as walking with 15 dogs, right? The iconic dog walker in New York City that has 1 million dogs on the leash, and you're like, how do they even keep the leashes from, not wrapping up? But you don't do it that way.
No, I think it's really important to have the smallest group possible, which in my opinion is 3. Sometimes walking a dog solo is you come in contact with 100 dogs on the street sometimes when you're walking a dog solo, which is a unique experience to Manhattan. So dogs that live in Manhattan have to have social graces. They need to be able to walk past another dog without baring teeth, getting on their hind legs, charging. And usually when we walk a dog with another dog or 2, they really calm down and walk consistently. So puppies that will stop all the time when they're just walked alone will walk more consistently if there's a dog they know and like.
True.
And then sometimes 2 dogs will try to play with each other. So that 3rd dog is the magic number in my opinion, and it really kind of makes it a small group. But any larger than that, then I think it's a safety issue. So anything larger than 3, you can't tell whose stool is which, and you don't know which dog is sick, or you can't tell you can't give every dog personal attention, which you can with 3.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you go to their house, you go up to their house, their apartment, you go up to the apartment, collect the dog. Are the owners always home or not always?
Sometimes and sometimes not. But we have a very strict rule that we will never leave dogs tied up outside of a building. So if there's a building that doesn't allow us to come up with the dog, we have another one of our employees waiting outside to hold the dogs. But usually we can come into the buildings with most dogs.
With the other dogs
And
that you have to
yeah,
go up to get the
and
third
50%
dog.
of the time there's someone home,
Mhm.
be it the owner, a housekeeper, that kind of thing.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And well, you had some questions. You want to ask some questions about?
Yeah, so I've kind of like dabbled, I'm gonna say very fine toed, did a little bit of dog walking here and there. And so how do you navigate cameras and like all the new developing technology? Like, is that a problem with like the Apple trackers
The
and stuff like the air tags and then the cameras? Does that like, I don't know, leak into like dog walking, anything like that?
You mean what we use specifically?
Yeah, well, like, I always, in the beginning when I started dog walking, it was always like, oh, I saw you on the camera, you were 15 minutes late to walk my dog. And then the client would give you a hard time about it. Or, oh, they didn't have their air tag on. I didn't know how many miles you did. You said you were going to do 5 miles. You only did 2 miles or whatever.
Yeah.
Does that, like, impact your business?
It helps because we have a very, full disclosure, we have a very open relationship with our clients.
Yeah.
So that's something that is the most important thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we encourage air tags. I require them if a dog goes off leash.
Mm-hmm.
I like air tags because they're $30 and they track well. And I've used the other, multiple other kind of trackers that are like $450 and they do not track as well as the air tags in New York City. I love the air tags. So I always encourage clients to get their own, and I buy them myself and put them on every single dog that goes off leash. So I think that's really important. And then also, you can ask about this with technology, but with ID, dogs all have to have ID, and we have our own as well. Otherwise, we can't take them out. But so there are cameras in every building, and so that helps us out because we are very particular about time and punctuality, and we give every walker a schedule that will give their pickup time for every dog. And if a walker is late, they're supposed to text us and let us know we're 5 minutes late. So we communicate that stuff with the client. But it'll help us out because if a client ever says, oh, I didn't see you come in, or I came later and it looked like you came earlier, we have documentation from the doormen because they timestamp when we come in and out, and also the cameras. So
that's super interesting because I would think technology would not benefit you, but that's awesome that like you can actually use it to your benefit. Yeah. And be like, yeah, see, I was on time, or I was, because I always felt like that was such a lack of communication, especially when you're just doing like random dog walking and stuff. So that's awesome. I really like that.
I love that about the city is that everything is on camera, recorded, and
Right. So if you're doing the right thing, it's a benefit.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Shady, and you're like, I wish there weren't so many cameras on me.
That's
for
true.
Sure.
That's true.
So you say you have 90 regular clients?
90 regular dogs. 90 regular clients, and a lot of them have a couple dogs in the household, so maybe about 100 dogs that we see regularly every day.
So what kind of employee situation do you have? How many people do you need to service all those people?
So we have 1 walker per 3 dogs, and we have 30 employees, not independent contractors. Everyone is an employee. And 30 employees. We have 2 managers that manage during the week and 3 managers on the weekends.
Why more managers on the weekends?
Why more managers? Well, someone does Saturday and someone does Sunday, and then there's a backup swing so that people don't have to do every single Saturday or every single Sunday.
And how long are the walks generally for the dogs? Does it vary?
It varies. Usually they're about an hour.
Okay.
But I think it's really important that all the dogs go to Central Park in the morning. So pretty much all of our dogs will go to Central Park in the morning, and depending on where you're located, if you're on 2nd Avenue in the 60s, that needs to be a 2-hour walk to get to the park and get back. If you're right on Park Avenue, you could probably do it in an hour and a half.
And you want to go to the park because you do off-leash, or because there's dog parks, or just because it's green space?
Basically all of that.
Okay.
A small amount of our dogs go off leash. About 6 of like the 30 dogs that we have in the morning go off leash. And
You go like to Dog Hill, or there's a place that's
yeah, there's a
designated
whole
in the
off-leash
park.
process, which
Like
we can talk
most of
about
our
in a second.
clients, most of our clients are not from New York City,
Yeah,
so
okay, right,
they're
right,
like,
right,
what
right.
is she even talking about?
Right, there's a whole process to off-leash, which I'm very anal about. But we like them to go to Central Park because there's Central Park before 9 a.m. allows dogs to be off leash, so that just attracts a ton of dogs. So you get the most socialization in the morning. So most of our dogs don't go off leash, but they're able to socialize and meet lots of different dogs. And we have our walkers meet up sometimes in the park because it's a controlled environment. We know which dogs are meeting up with which dogs and that they get along. So we'll kind of have spots where they'll congregate a little bit and then they'll go on their way. Some of the dogs go off leash, but it's just the best place for socialization.
Mm-hmm.
And socialization, you mean most of them are staying on leash, you're standing there talking, or are they actually going off and, let's walk together, that kind of thing?
Walking together. I like everyone to be moving at all times.
Gotcha.
So
I guess when we talked on the phone originally, and I met Jennifer through a mutual client who came to us for training, and then she was from the city and wanted him to walk with Jennifer in her company, and asked me to speak to you just to sort of give you the lowdown of the dog and what you can expect. And we started talking about New York City dog walking and what I imagine, again, the iconic image of 15 dogs with one person. And we also talked about the reactivity in New York City, because we talk about reactivity a lot, leash reactivity in particular, because that's a lot of our clients come in with these issues.
Right.
We have found, not so much Sophie because she's young, but I've been doing this for a long, long time. And, the average dog in this region, again, we always talk about being regional to the state, to the country, to the world, because we have people listening from all over. That as time has progressed, we have seen more reactivity and more bad behavior in dogs than we ever did when I was young. And, there's this whole theory about how people, because there's so many outlets to care for your dog daycare, dog walkers, dog sitters, it has allowed people to keep dogs in the past that they would have said, I can't deal with this, and rehome them or whatever. So my image of the New York City dogs is that they're not leash reactive for the most part. Like, they're better than the suburban dogs because they have to be in that environment. Do you find over the last 20 years that has changed, the reactivity level, or has it always stayed the same, do you think?
I agree with you that the dogs in New York City are less reactive because they have to be, because they have a lot more practice, because they come in contact with 100 other dogs when they go outside on one walk.
Mm-hmm.
So through the week, they could come in contact with hundreds of different dogs on their leash. They keep getting that practice.
Mm-hmm.
In the suburbs, sometimes if people have invisible fence or whatever, they see one dog or a couple dogs a day walking by really far out, which is very stressful because they have to protect their whole area. Where, when these dogs are out of sight, out of mind, not protecting their building just down the street, they come into contact with a lot of dogs on the street versus just right in front of their house.
Right.
And those dogs our New York City dogs are more protective in their buildings, in their lobbies.
Are they?
That's when most of the reactivity
Really?
happens. Yeah, in their lobbies. So we actually try to get in front of it, and there's a new puppy, we like them to walk with another dog in that building. So they develop a positive relationship, because if they don't, they can, be aggressive later on, and then it can get out of hand.
It's super interesting because every client that we've had from the city, for the most part, it's like passing dogs in the building that the reactivity comes from, or they're not from the city and they adopted this dog and he's becoming reactive on the street and stuff like that, and then we have to kind of go to White Plains and kind of simulate walking through the city and the sounds and the noises and all that stuff. So I like how you catch it early, because that's so important. And that's what we really worked on with the client that we contacted you with, which super important. He's young, let's get him out there, get him out in the world, and understand that other dogs are fine, and we're not going to play with everybody, we're going to walk.
Right.
So.
Right, and New York City dogs, I imagine, don't stop as often and socialize when they see other dogs on a leash, because you're seeing so many dogs. Whereas if you're in the park in the suburbs, you're going to be stopping and talking to other dogs, which we have a whole problem.
Yeah.
People always want to stop and talk to us. Oh, he's friendly. And, we're we're in training. Please no.
That's a good point. And that's another reason why I really like walking multiple dogs at once, because then they're a lot less likely to lunge at new dogs. When dogs are in a group, they're calmer, they'll walk past other dogs a lot easier than if they're solo. If they're solo, they want to stop and look at everyone, and it can cause anxiety. So those small groups are really important for that. But in terms of your question about if reactivity has changed over the 20 years that I've been in business, I don't think so. But after the pandemic, it went way up.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that was my
her
second
goal.
question.
Yes.
I was going to ask.
After the pandemic, we are just starting to feel relief from it. But for 2 years after the pandemic, dogs were just much more reactive. And they were reactive. I know why they were reactive. They're reactive because they're not socializing as much, because they're seeing their own owner and only their family every day, and they get so much more attached, and you know, separation anxiety goes way up, and people are home all the time, and they go out for like, you know, an hour, and the dog gets really anxious. And then if they're only with their people, you know, for a year at a time, once you start to introduce a walker, it's really stressful for that dog. So the dogs were really anxious, really reactive, also much more reactive when clients would have someone coming in to fix their sink, or, you know, any kind of, so.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. I mean, obviously we are very, very well versed with the COVID dog, the COVID puppy, for sure.
And the dogs were much more reactive in the park. We had to really go back and put dogs that used to be good on leash, good off leash, back on leash.
Interesting.
So.
Man, we really screwed these poor dogs up.
And I think more people were coming to Central Park from farther away. They would drive in and have dogs in Central Park. So there were a lot of fights that broke out, you know, knock on wood, not with our dogs, but there were a lot of fights, and they get really loud in the park when dogs are fighting. Usually the fights are really loud, and that means that they're not serious. When they get serious, then the fights are quiet, and there's latching on, and then there's, you know, that's gonna be very dangerous.
For sure. Oh, these poor dogs.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we felt that certainly here in the suburbs, that particularly All Trails, which has been terrible for the trails in the suburbs, right? So All Trails has marked every walking trail in all of these counties north of the city. And then, of course, during the pandemic, people were coming up here and going on All Trails, and these previously sort of well-kept secret, you know, really local trails where you could take your dogs off leash. You'd never run into anybody. Suddenly we're running into all these city people with, you know, their dogs, or even not with their dogs, and we were just overrun. Yeah.
Yep.
It was tough.
It was tough. It was tough. And even like just people bringing their dogs from the city into like our local parks and stuff. So like even not All Trail stuff, and then having their dogs off leash, and we would be walking our dogs where you have to have your dog on leash in this type of the park, and there'd just be dogs running up on us. Yeah. And you know, it was very, very chaotic during COVID.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like we've just started calming down from like having people come and.
Yeah, we don't, like every dog we hear from now for training, we don't hear, well, he was a COVID puppy. You know, for a while there, it was like every other dog that called was like, well, it was because of COVID. And I'm like, was it though? Did it have to be that way? Could we have done some things differently? But you know, we live and learn. Hopefully we will never have to go through that. At least everyone is alive now. Hopefully we'll never have to go through that trauma of a worldwide pandemic again, because that was tough for all of us. Did how did you fare during the pandemic? I assume you couldn't work, no? Did they allow you to continue to work with dogs?
Our business took a major hit with sales during the pandemic. Very, very much. A lot of our clients had alternatives. They had second homes, or they had families with large enough homes outside the city, and they relocated. So we went down to 10 clients from 90 within like 48 hours.
Oh my God.
When the pandemic, it was the most bizarre thing I had ever seen. I got call after call after call. The phone wouldn't stop ringing as soon as the pandemic. Remember the pandemic? Everything shut down in like 2 days. I think it was like March 9th or something.
Yep, right before Daddy's birthday.
Yep.
Right near my son's birthday. Yeah. Right around then, and within 48 hours, oh, I'm leaving, I'm so sorry, oh, I'm leaving, employees, and then clients, and then literally everyone was gone within 2 days.
You must have been panicked.
I was.
Along with everybody else, but
I was, and you know, we have our manager, Liz, we have one full-time employee, and that's our manager, Liz. We've been working together for like 12 years. Liz is like family. She's fabulous. She, you know, is very important to me. So like I didn't want, you know, anything to threaten her job.
Sure.
She stayed in the city, so I did everything that I could to keep her stable, to keep us stable, whoever was here. But it was very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then when did it start to wake up?
And then it was like that for like, I think a year and a half. And then slowly everyone came back to the city. And it's really funny, but our clients seem to be on the same schedule. I swear they all like talk in their dreams or something. They all came back pretty much at once. So it was...
Then it was rebuilding.
And then it was, yeah, and now we're busier than we've ever been.
Sure.
Now, you know, in the last year, sales has been kind of going up every year.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you think it's with people like, because everyone was starting to get a dog during COVID, do you think
Yes.
that was, okay, yeah.
That was really helpful. A lot of people got dogs during COVID.
So tell us about your experience with that, because we had our vet here last week, and he talked about how vet medicine has been very hard since COVID because so many new dog owners came into the picture,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a completely different idea of what it means to. My dog is, you know, vomited foamy bile this morning. I need to come in immediately.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, people who've had dogs their whole life are like, whatever, clean it up and move on. Did you find that your new dog clients that have never had dogs before, were there a lot of them that came to you at that point?
There were. I didn't feel like it was very different handling them than clients. It's been
They
the
didn't
whole
have
time.
different expectations?
I don't think so, because I think new clients, when they're new dog owners, always kind of have a little bit of that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I don't think the pandemic affected
Like
that
their
as much.
expectations?
I think maybe, yeah, it didn't. Because we're very clear about what we need when we see a dog. So when we see a dog, you know, based on the age and the breed, I'll give them a recommendation about how many hours of exercise they need to be outside every day. We stick to that. And
Do you walk some dogs multiple times a day?
yeah. So we have what we call full service clients, and those are the clients where we handle all of their walks, and those walks are pretty much breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Interesting.
And so it's important that we, you know, we're overseeing that. So like for instance,
That wouldn't be the same, it would be multiple dog walkers the same day, or?
it's usually at least
That's a
two
long day,
because
yeah.
that's 7 hours, or hours are from 7 to 7. So usually it could be 2 different walkers or even 3 different walkers, but it's a consistent walker every day. And then the manager will oversee everything. So like you said with like the vet, like if there's ever an irregular, any kind of spill, meaning like vomit or diarrhea or anything that's irregular, we'll take pictures of that and document it, because if we have to talk to the vet, we have to let them know, oh, in the morning it was solid, in the afternoon it was like this.
Sure.
So that's how we kind of control all of that.
Interesting. So what are your criteria when you have somebody call, a new person come? I mean, there must be clients that you're like, we're not a good fit for you.
Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, a couple times there have. But when we have a new client, I spend about 75 minutes with them before we walk their dog. So we talk on the phone for half hour, and we meet in person with their dog for 45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And we take the dog out together, and I usually like to watch the owner walk their own dog before I take the dog, so I can see what their habits are, how the dog is used to being walked, the equipment, any kind of behavior that the dog is exhibiting that maybe we want to correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll take the dog and walk it. And also in that session, I'll go through all the commands. I'll practice them myself. I'll see how the dog responds.
So in a way, you're like doing a lot of the training.
So we don't do any training, but we'll reinforce the training.
Okay.
So throughout my career of having my business for 20 years, I've probably observed at least 200 hours of dog trainers working one-on-one with
Sure.
dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So we had this one client that generously paid for me to walk every single day for 6 months with a fabulous trainer in the city. I'll never forget that. That was incredible training for me.
Mm-hmm.
I got to watch what she did with this dog, you know, teaching the dog to sit, to teaching the dog to wave. When you'd say, Henry, wave, and he'd go like this. It's very cute. But I learned so much from that trainer. And then also we have these annual meetings where we have a dog trainer talk to our staff, answer any questions, show all different types of equipment. Every year, kind of the equipment, there's new equipment, but there's usually just kind of 5 pieces of equipment that we just like and then our go-to, which I would love your opinion on in a second. So we have that. And then what we do is I love trainers because my favorite thing to do is help correct behavior. So I don't want to train, but I will observe the training sessions, and I'll do whatever that we can do to let the walker know that they can practice on the walk. So we will reinforce, and we'll say to the trainers, what do you want us to reinforce, if anything? Some say nothing, just have a fun walk. Some say we want you to sit at every corner, we want you to, treat every time around motorcycles, because the dog has a fear of motorcycles. Some say, let's work on recall, and we'll have 2 walkers meet. When we talked about off leash, we'll have 2 walkers meet in the park and do recall with that dog, first on a long lead, then on a short leash, and then, free. So we can do that, and we enjoy that. And so, whenever a new client comes to us and they have a trainer, we're like, great, let's meet that trainer. If the trainer is open to it, maybe they can give us some notes, so they can give us some videos, so we can all have the same commands that we practice, and we can do whatever the trainer wants to do.
Interesting.
And I'm very deferential to trainers too, because they're the ones that, I'm not a trainer, but I want to be able to reinforce that kind of training.
Yeah, and it benefits you, right?
Yeah.
And the dog is having a lovely, peaceful walk. Your employees are happy.
Yeah.
They stay longer.
That's
They do a better job.
Yes.
It's a win-win-win for everyone involved.
Yeah.
For sure. I think your discussion with me regarding our mutual client was more along the lines of, as long as he's not pulling, I'm cool.
Yep.
As long as he could be, and that's really what we work on. And we always walk in groups here, because we're usually training multiple dogs. And when we are not, we bring some of our own with us, because it's just an opportunity to get our dogs out. But yeah, we don't want them to pull. We don't really care where they walk, as long as they're not tripping me. We want the walk to be peaceful and happy, and we want them to enjoy it. That being said, we don't want them stopping at every light post and every fire hydrant. Right. We need to keep moving. So yeah, we talked about that, you and and I did hang up wondering, I wonder what trainers, how rigid some trainers are. Because we have a very strong opinion about, of course, every trainer has a strong opinion about what they do.
Sure.
Yeah. We don't like real regimented, structured walks, because, this is their time too. And we want more of a partnership, more of a cooperative. We want them to check in and be engaged with us, but also be engaged with the environment and the other dogs that are out there with them. So that's basically what we talked about with Griffin. And we talked about, you did ask me what he wears as far as a collar. We use a lot of prong collars on our training dogs. We like prong collars because they are no impact on the neck, unless the dog is being corrected, which 99% of the time, you gotta remember, the collar is inactive. Doesn't matter what collar they're on. If the dog is well trained, you're not gonna be using that correction. And, we like the non-slip aspect of it. We use martingales in place of prong collars, because again, you want the limited slip, particularly in a city-like situation. Dog gets spooked by a motorcycle and suddenly they're out of the collar and they're on a city street. That's super scary. Certainly for us as well, because again, these are not our dogs. So we double hook many times on 2 different collars, especially when we're first starting a dog, because if they were to get spooked and get off leash, they're not going to see us as a safe space, because they don't know us yet. Once we get into week 2, we feel very comfortable with most of the dogs that we're with, that if something were to happen and they were to become off leash, that they would come back to us, because they now know us and feel comfortable with us. And of course, when you're a regular dog walker, you're going to have that kind of relationship with your dog, with the dogs that you're walking and the people. So how often do you deal with dogs who are bitey, aggressive, especially when, like you say, you're coming into their space, and especially in the beginning when you're first developing a relationship with them? How often does that happen?
So we don't tolerate it. This is how we address that. If a dog, when we talk to a client for the first time, we always ask, has the dog ever bitten anyone? If they say yes, I want to know exactly what the circumstance was. If that dog was woken up during sleep and he, lunged and bit a child, that's a terrible circumstance, but it's not the dog's fault if someone's waking up. Okay, so I like to know exactly what happened. I'm very thorough about that. What was the circumstance? What happened before it? What happened after it? Did they break skin? How far? All of those questions. So we take it really seriously. And then if a dog is going to be aggressive when we arrive, we ask, in some cases, if a dog bites, we will ask that they have a basket muzzle, and we won't take that dog unless the dog has a basket muzzle.
So they would have to have it on before you arrive.
Correct. And we do have that sometimes, the dog has a basket muzzle. Or sometimes, if they're not biting, but we're a little concerned that they might, we will ask the client to dress the dog, so the dog already has all their equipment on.
And you just take the leash.
Yes.
Gotcha.
But I will not send a walker up there
Right.
to dress a dog that has, a
Sure.
habit of doing that.
And I would imagine it's probably worse when the owners are home.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I know my dogs are
Yeah,
much worse
right.
with new people when I'm around. When I am not in the picture, they're like, they love everyone.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of dog behavior as well,
Yeah.
particularly for Aussies.
Mm-hmm.
So just to get back to the different equipment that you
Mhm.
will put on, what do you normally see? I'm sure you see a gazillion harnesses, mostly harnesses, I would imagine. What type of equipment do you encounter, and what do you prefer your clients, if you had the perfect world, to wear?
So it's very breed specific, sometimes age specific too.
Mm-hmm.
An older dog sometimes is fine to be just walked on a neck collar.
Sure.
But usually for a new dog that's an anxious dog and what we call a flight risk, a puppy or a really anxious dog that if they get out of their equipment, they're going to book it, we require 2 points of contact. So we will have 2 leashes. And we'll always have a leash on the neck, and then we'll have a leash somewhere else.
Mhm.
If God forbid, equipment fails.
I get it.
Yep, and that can happen too because on the leash, the end of the leash, the
clasp, sure.
clasp. If someone has a beach house and there's a piece of sand in that groove, that clasp is like always a little bit open. So things like that,
Yeah.
we're very anal about. They have to be working clasp. The equipment has to work. But one of my favorite pieces of equipment is the martingale. And I like martingales which have a buckle on them, so you don't have to resize them every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say to our walkers, no matter who puts that equipment on, if it's the owner, if it's the housekeeper, anyone, we always have to check that the size and make sure that the size fits.
Mm-hmm.
So martingales, I don't usually like choke, but I do like prongs for certain bigger breeds.
Sure.
I would definitely do it on an Aussie. I
Right.
think it would be great.
Particularly with the really big guys, for us it's a safety. We deal with a lot of big dogs, and it's a
Yeah.
safety issue.
Yeah,
for
totally.
clients.
Yes.
And for me, when I'm dealing with particularly people my age and older, I'm like, all you need to do is be pulled down once, break your wrist.
Yep.
It really does impact the people, and people are like, oh, prong collars, rah, rah, rah. I'm like, listen,
You're right.
it's about both the human and the dog's
Mhm.
safety. It's not just about the dog.
100%. And some people will say, oh, I don't like, we use a lot of time the Gentle Leader. Another brand of that is a Halti.
Mhm.
And those are equipment, I know that you know this, but for the viewers that go around the nose. Now, people will say, oh, that's a muzzle. The only reason they say that is because it goes around their nose.
Right.
What they don't realize is the dog's mouth can be fully open where they can carry a ball, they can take treats, and it's very gentle, hence the name, where like you're leading
It's just
the dog
to
by
control
their
the
neck.
dog's head.
Yes.
Mhm.
So with a large breed, sometimes you need it.
Right. Well, I've gone over top of dogs before.
And then if you're in the city, and a walker gets hurt, and then the dog runs into traffic.
Right.
So those
Mhm.
things are very
Yeah, scary,
serious.
For sure.
So yeah, for larger dogs, usually we'll do a head collar, never harness usually for larger breeds. For smaller breeds or sporter breeds, sometimes with the harness. Usually I always like the front clip, not the back clip, unless
Sure.
it's a smaller dog.
Or like an old guy
Or an old guy.
who just trots next to
Exactly.
you and never pulls.
Exactly, but for pulling dog, it's like a joke to put a back clip them here.
Right.
And I see people do it all the time, and then the harnesses are not fit to the animal's body, and they're pulling the harnesses, and there's this much space.
And all they
between
have to
the
do is
harnesses,
back out of it.
and
It
all
comes
they have to
right
do is
off.
back out
Yeah,
of it. That's
scary.
true.
Mhm.
So the chest, like I like the balance harness because they have a clip on the chest and the back.
Mhm.
And I also like something called, have you heard of Sensation?
Mm-mm.
SEN-Asian.
I don't
It's
like
a-
it already.
It's the name. Actually, it's a
Go
it's a funny name, but it's a great harness
Mhm.
because it's like the Easy Walk harness, but it sits a little higher on the chest. So
Mhm.
sometimes the Easy Walk harnesses, I like them, but if you have a dog with a body like a Brittany Spaniel, sometimes it can fall down here and it disrupts their gait.
Right.
The Sensation sits a little bit higher, and it's easier to put on. So I like the
Interesting.
Sensation front clip. I like the balance harness for harnesses and butterfly harnesses for tiny dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So, speaking of breeds,
Yeah.
what are your percentages? Do you do mostly small dogs? I mean, not that that's what you're pursuing, but most of your clients are small to medium dogs. Do you have a lot of big dogs? We don't really know about New York City dogs.
You're right. On the Upper East Side, I think they tend to be bigger.
Yeah, really interesting. Bigger, like what breeds? Give us some breeds.
So mostly everything that we walk these days is mixed with a poodle.
Doodle.
Yeah, so it's a lot of doodles. There were a lot of golden doodles and labradoodles about like 10 years ago. That was the craze. Lately, it has been Bernedoodle.
Mm-hmm.
And Bernedoodles are tricky. They're beautiful, but they're smart and they're stubborn.
Yep.
So the poodle makes them very smart, and the Bernese, they can be stubborn. And so what they do is they know what they're doing and they'll act out. So you have to make sure that you are assertive with them.
Also some aggression through those lines.
And there's also some aggression with them, that's true. So you have to be assertive with them.
And
They're
I wonder,
wonderful dogs.
I mean, it's hard to imagine an aggressive Bernese Mountain Dog.
Yeah.
Of course, they are out there, so you wonder where that aggression is. It coming from the poodle side? But yeah, we see a lot of Bernedoodles.
Yep.
Yeah,
You know,
you
all
never know
different
the
sizes.
size either.
That's
so
true.
like I have a Bernedoodle. Okay, what's the weight? Because
Right.
that matters.
Could be a
obviously.
micro.
Well, they have the little ones, they have the
Yeah.
big ones, they have
Yeah.
the short legs, they have the long legs. It's like you never know what you're gonna get.
That's true with the
So,
doodles.
Right.
And it's hard to
Because
tell the
it's not a
doodle.
standard.
And it's hard to tell the doodle looking at it. You're like, is it a golden doodle or is it a labradoodle?
Mhm.
Because it's a combination. But yeah, a lot of them are mixed with doodles. We have a lot of sporting breeds. We have a lot of clients that are fortunate enough to have, big homes with a lot of land that they go to on the weekends, that they leave for the whole summer. And so you get a lot of sporty dogs. You get dogs that hunt and that have hunting backgrounds, that use e-collars. You get dogs that, but
What's your
usually
most
medium.
unusual breeds? Do you have any of my Russian wolfhounds?
No, we don't. No, we don't.
I would love to see. If I lived in the city, I would get a Borzoi. They seem like a great city dog. Just big, loungy, couch furniture.
They're fancy looking for sure.
And they're nice
We
walkers.
haven't had those, and we haven't had.
Greyhounds are also great in the city.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
Nice, easy gait, calm. Usually pretty good with other dogs, unless they're small and they want to eat them.
That's the only bad thing about greyhounds. Is the small dog thing.
Small white dogs.
Yeah, little
Stay
small
away.
little-
Yeah, for sure.
We haven't had a Great Dane. I haven't seen that in a while, and I actually like them. And I think that they're good in the city if they have enough space because they're kind of lazy at home.
Yeah.
They don't need that much. Once you have dogs that are so big, it's actually easier to handle in the city.
For
There's
sure.
really small dogs, but the ones in the middle, those Brittany Spaniels, have crazy energy. Vizslas,
And you think
Yep.
you're in the
Weimaraners,
city,
Yep.
and you're like, oh, and they're insane. It would be much easier if you had like dog this high that was like a horse that would just.
For sure.
Mhm.
For sure.
So
We've seen a couple GSPs, the wire hairs and stuff. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know how you have this dog in the city. Like that's crazy. And they're we have a house on the weekend, which is
Yeah.
great. But I'm
Yeah.
like during the week,
But
I'm
you're
like,
still in the
oh,
city,
yeah,
puppies.
whoa.
right, but during the week, like with a Weimaraner, like a healthy young Weimaraner, I mean, we would recommend that the dog walks 4 hours a day,
Mhm.
which may seem like a lot, but a 2-hour walk to the park in the morning,
Mhm.
off leash, running around, that's ideal if the dog has good recall.
Sure.
And then, an hour around lunchtime and an hour around dinner time.
Mm.
And then all they need, and sometimes we handle all of that for a client that we call full service. We'll do the 4 hours, and then we walk from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So the dog just needs a quick potty break at night.
So how do you work around weather?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Especially
So-
this summer, it's been brutal.
It's true.
I would imagine it's easier almost in the winter for you because the summer when it gets so incredibly hot, it's really hard to you can't swim your dogs. I don't think, right? You're not
No.
allowed to swim in Central Park.
No, you're not. Yeah, we've only canceled walks in the 19 and a half years that I've been doing this, probably like 10 times.
Mm.
Okay?
Wow.
And the only reason that we will cancel a walk is if it says on the news that it is unsafe conditions. So usually when it's very cold and a dog is uncomfortable, we will just have a relief walk. But we take our job really seriously. We're sometimes the only people that can let that dog out and potty. That dog needs to potty.
Right, sure.
So walks, so two things. Walks will be adjusted if the dog is too cold. We always have what we call a sub, which is a walker that's in the field at all times that does not have a job, and their job is to help with last minute stuff. So if a dog is too cold, but the other dogs it's walking with are fine to stay out, that sub will take the tiny small dog back, right? Or if a dog is contagious and needs to be isolated from the group, the sub will take that dog for the day. So we have helpers in the field at all time that are paid to be there, that are like on call. So we have that, which is important to deal with weather. And then weather is very specific to the dog.
Well, that's true.
I mean, we have some dachshunds that are like, they can tolerate more and they don't want to go home and they're fine than like a big golden. I mean, that's rare, but I mean, sometimes it happens. But we're always, all of our walkers are certified in pet first aid. We know what to look for in terms of, when dogs are too cold, when they're overheated. We take it really seriously. With the bigger breeds, we usually always shorten the walks when it's over 75 degrees.
Right.
And so they're only outside for about 20 minutes for a potty break.
It's been tough this summer.
Yeah,
This summer has been just really brutal. So what we do is we have several different paths we go on, and this time of year we just do our water walk. So halfway, 30 minutes in, there's water and they can swim or wade.
And we'll try to carry water on the walks and make sure that we put water on the head, on the paws when the dog is really uncomfortable.
Yeah, our dogs are usually well cared for. It's usually us that get back to the car. Questioning all life choices.
We need Starbucks today.
You're good. Do you have other questions?
Another tool I was wondering is flexi leashes. How do you feel about flexi leashes?
So we won't use them. We won't use them.
I had a feeling it's a lot.
Yeah, one of the things that we will do is we'll switch to leashes when we're in the park. So if it's a small dog and they have a flexi leash, we'll say we need just a regular flat lead when we walk to the park, and then we can switch to it so the dog has more,
room to smell,
to run around. Exactly.
So do you use that a lot for dogs that aren't good off leash but need more space to run?
We'll use a long lead. The flexi,
Okay.
because they're thin and it has the button, we'll use for like little dogs, but once it becomes like 20 pounds and up, we'll use a flat long lead. I love the 15 feet flat long leads because once you get to 20, it's too hard and the dog's going to get around you.
Sure.
But the 15 foot, for some reason, I really like if a dog needs to run around a little bit.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've been doing this a while and you've worked out
all the things. I'm loving it.
Oh, and then off leash, we talk about that if you like. If someone is interested in off leash, we require that the walker gets to know the dog for like a good month every day on leash. If the dog is really good off leash, maybe it can be a couple of weeks, but the person has to bond with that dog. So
I would be so nervous.
The walker needs to bond with the dog for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And then what we do is we like the trainer and the client and myself and the walker to all go the first day. And if the client have a history of taking the dog off leash, we want to see where the client takes the dog, how they experience recall, and all the dogs kind of have different boundaries. So we'll say where does your dog typically go? And everyone has a very clear-cut answer. They're like, oh, he's only 10 feet in front of me at all times. Or he's always like 30 feet in front of me at all times. But you get you get to kind of see what that dog is used to and how close it is to the person. And then what we'll do is we'll practice recall, we use treats, and I go with that walker and make sure that we practice recall the next day. We have an air tag on the dog. We never take the dog off leash unless it has ID, air tag, walker has treats, and we've practiced and the client knows exactly where.
And I would imagine that you probably run into the same breeds all over and over again with off leash stuff. Like, if somebody's saying I want you to take my Aussie off leash, I'm like, okay. If they're saying I want you to take my Husky off leash, I'm going, prove to me that this dog has any recall at all.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's why the trainer is important, because if you don't have a trainer and then you want your dog to be recalled, it's like, okay, here are some trainers that you can work with.
Yes.
Maybe we can get your dog.
That's true, and that's what we'll do. That's what we'll do often, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes clients will think like, oh, if he's off leash in the Hamptons on the beach, he's going to be fine in Central Park. It's totally different.
Right.
First of all, if you have a beach, you're going in either this direction or this direction.
No in between.
Okay, there's no like all over these directions. So, and it's very different, and you're going to come into contact maybe on the beach. I don't know where you're going, but usually with maybe 10 dogs when you're going like off leash.
Mm-hmm.
But in the park, it's going to be hundreds.
Right.
So you need to know.
And you do use e-collars if they have them. If they're working with e-collars and a trainer, you'll use e-collars with off leash.
Yes, yes, we will. But I like that's going to be a whole other thing. If they do e-collars, the client needs to come with us. I need to talk to the trainer. E-collars, you have to be really careful because you can't have just a walker do it if they're not used to it.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's all about timing
Yeah.
with the e-collar. Sometimes we'll just
Not
use
unlike
the
the
sound.
flexi leash. It's all about being able to handle that stupid leash.
Yeah.
Hit the button, reel your dog in. That's the problem I think with flexi leashes. It's not the flexi leash so much.
I
It's
love
that
it as
people
a
are
tool.
uncoordinated.
Yeah, it's
Right,
just,
right.
There's a time and place to use a flexi leash. And
Yeah.
people are just like, oh, they just have the length of the leash, and I'm like, no, like, it's all about timing.
Yeah.
It's literally a physical e-collar.
Yeah.
So
True.
But- it's very interesting.
Do you have any other questions?
I don't know, I answered all my questions.
I just have one question for you.
Sure.
What do you like to see in walkers?
What do we like to see and like what we want them to work on with our dogs?
Yeah, what would be, if you had a client that you're training and they live in the city, what would be ideal for you in that dog walker in terms of like, do you want that walker to communicate with you? Do you want them to have certain qualities or do certain things?
I think for us, whenever we're dealing with another professional, wherever it may be, which sometimes we're looped in, we get looped in a lot for the second dog in the household. We'll talk to the breeder, or we get looped in if they're adopting a rescue dog, or like yourself, if they're hiring a dog walker. We just want somebody who is open and willing to listen. And I really hate people who are super defensive and easily threatened. And it's like, listen, I'm not here to tell you how to do your job. I'm here to just tell you what we experience and what we would like to see. We tend to be very realistic about how we train the dogs. We don't want little robots. We want happy, cooperative companions that you have an interaction
relationship
a
with.
relationship
Yeah.
with, that they're checking in, that it's a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we see trainers out when we're out in the world and they've got, 4 Rotties lined up in a down in the middle of the park. And I'm like, ugh, and that's just not my thing. Like, to get to that level, I'm kind of going off topic, but to get to that level,
Of training.
you have to do such intense training, and most people can't do that well and humanely.
Mm-hmm.
So we love to work with other professionals, just as long as there's an open line of communication. If I were to say this is what he's used to, this is what we allow, and a dog walker were to say to me, well, we don't do it that way. We require that they stop at every corner, and when you're then throwing rules at me, I'm like, listen, you called me.
Right.
Yeah.
You asked me what I would love to see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll deal with all kinds of tools. Once the dog goes home, we understand that people are going to use the tools that they're going to use. As long as you have control over your dog and you're reinforcing all of the right things, we're pretty flexible on it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would very flexible, and I like hearing all the stuff that you covered, because those are all super important to me as a trainer, which is why I'm like, you are training kind of, because you're reinforcing all these really important quality of life behaviors that I think sometimes owners have a harder time understanding that it has to be consistent, and you have to have a dog walker who.
And I think a dog walker who was really professional and skilled, because you hire a dog walker from one of these online things that's just somebody doing it for fun, and they think that it's cool to walk your dog up to every dog that they see online.
Yeah.
And that is, that's going to cause all kinds of fights. We do really encourage our clients, as far as being out in the world, to not meet other dogs when they're both leashed, unless you know them, of course. And if you're walking with somebody, to sort of come in parallel and walk together. And we tell all of our clients, and when they come to us and they're dog aggressive and all this stuff, I'm like, listen, your dog can walk with any of our dogs,
Mhm.
any of them.
Right.
Because once they're walking parallel, it
Right.
becomes team mentality and pack mentality, and they're going, and suddenly they're on the same team rather than adversaries.
Exactly, and a lot of clients haven't seen that, so they don't like with dog interactions. That's how we do it too. We always have 2 walkers when we're trying to introduce a dog to another dog, and the aggressive dog goes behind the walker with the less aggressive dog, and then we talk to each other so the dogs hear that the walkers are talking and having a conversation.
Same team.
Yeah, exactly. And then slowly they'll walk abreast and they'll each have their dog on their outsides, and then after a little while, when the dogs are calm with that, then one person will take a dog on either side. And then if those dogs are walked together like that for a week or so, whatever happened previously, they're fine.
Yeah,
They're a
it's
team.
really brilliant to watch.
But if dogs meet nose to nose, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Nose to nose, we never like nose to nose. We always like them to sniff from behind
And
first.
you know, it's never just nose to nose.
Yeah.
It's nose to nose pulling, each pulling on
Right,
the leash,
right.
each having their
That's
oppositional
true.
reflex going. They're now all wound up. So, you know, we don't like dogs to meet when they're on leash.
Yeah.
We tell our clients all the time, there is no upside to the guy coming up with his golden doodle saying they're friendly, don't worry. There's no upside to that for you. None. Okay?
Even if both dogs are super friendly, that interaction could just lead downhill, and now they have a terrible interaction with the dog,
Yes.
and then it impacts their whole leash walking experience.
Right, for like
So-
weeks to come, and then you have to like undo it. That's true.
Exactly.
So a lot of your dogs will meet off leash, you're saying?
No, I'm saying when we're out in the world, we don't want to meet other dogs.
You don't want to meet under the dogs on
We
leash.
just don't.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And then also, when we touch on this earlier, is that when they meet a lot of dogs when they're out in the world being walked, they start to see other dogs as a source of excitement. If they're not leash aggressive, right?
Mhm.
They start to see them as a source of excitement. So now I'm seeing the dog halfway down the block, and I'm like, oh, here we go, and they start to wind up. Whereas if you're in the city and you're walking by a million dogs and you're not stopping
Yeah.
and saying hello, it's just, oh, there's another dog, but that's not now a source of excitement.
Right.
So we don't like people to stop, you know, when they're walking their dogs. And we really don't like people to stop and talk to people too much, because that can also cause, of course, we're talking about dogs who are coming to us for training, so
Yeah.
have some baggage. But again, they can start seeing people as a source of excitement as well,
I see.
right? So
Mhm.
again, it's different in the city because you're walking by thousands of people.
Yes.
Up here, if you're at the park, you might walk by 10 people.
Right. And a lot of clients that are new clients will think that the walker needs to come to the house and go, "Hi! Oh my gosh!"
Right.
And what they're doing is they think that that person likes the dog more than someone that will come, wait for the dog. When I come to meet a new dog, I think it's very important that the dog invites me in. So if a dog is running out into the hallway and barking at me, I will show them my side. I'll toss treats on the ground. I'll let them calm down. And when the dog turns around and starts heading back in, then I will start hacking. I will never walk into a client's house when that dog is barking or right here at the door staring at me.
Right.
And I'll tell the client too, you know, I want the dog to feel comfortable with me coming in, and then the dog to let me in.
Right. And you know, you can tell people that, but they have such a visceral reaction to that sometimes.
Yes.
When the dogs get dropped off here for training, we've never met them,
Mhm.
by and large.
Right.
And we basically ignore them
Yes.
and just talk to the owner. And sometimes the dogs are woo, 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 you know, at the end of their
Right.
leash or whatever. And we basically ignore them
Yep.
the whole time they're
Yep.
here with the client.
That's true.
And then after the client leaves, we're sitting on a chair and just letting them adjust. I always feel like I have to talk to the clients, like, you know, I'm, you know, doing this on purpose.
Yep.
You know?
Sometimes I'll say to a client, you know, it's lovely to meet you. I'm so sorry I can't shake your hand right now if a dog is a little aggressive tendencies. Because we've had dogs before when I first started walking, you'll go to touch the client and that dog
Right.
will be really threatened.
Sure.
So
Sure.
those things are important. And the last thing I'm going to say, for some reason I found this, and I'm sure you have something to say about this too, is when a dog will lick my face, when I can get that dog to lick my face during, and I can't do that with every dog, but then I can come back to that house by myself and get that dog every time. So it's usually
Interesting.
my goal. When I go to meet with a client, we talk first, then we go through commands, the dog, and then I like to play at the end where the dog's a ball or I'll toss it. But if I can get that dog comfortable enough to get close and lick my face and get their scent on me, then when I come back, I'm like golden with the dogs.
Interesting.
Like, yeah,
Okay.
it's always my goal.
The ultimate appeasement gesture.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a little kiss. Yeah. I'm not a threat, lady. Come on.
Exactly.
in.
So
Well, it sounds like you have a ton of experience, and you sell yourself a little short with your dog knowledge.
Thank you.
I agree with Sophie.
Yeah.
You're probably pretty much what do you call those people who get a degree from a college but don't actually go there? An honorary.
Yeah.
You're an honorary dog trainer.
That's funny.
And probably you have more dog experience and knowledge than a lot of people who call themselves trainers who really are not, since there's really not a lot of regulation in this field. So
And it's all about being open-minded. Just be open-minded.
Yes.
I don't mind what tool you use or how you use it, as long as it works. Just be open-minded. It's the people in all dog industries that are rigid, and this is the way, there's no other way.
There's only one way to do
I'm
things.
just like, how, like, dogs are all different, people are all different, we have to be adaptable to each dog and each personality in life, not just about animals, but yeah, and I feel like you're very good at that.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I have a bachelor's in science from Northwestern with honors. So I did not study
That's a real
dogs.
degree, though. That's not an honorary degree.
This happened totally by accident, but it has been an incredible business.
And you survived COVID, so
yeah, it's true.
Good for you. I mean, the dog industry really went through everything died off, and then it came back like 10 times worse. And now it's like, I agree, it's sort of now finally leveling off, and it's been, 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Hard to believe.
Yeah.
We're not going back.
Fingers crossed.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Jennifer from Canine Cardio. It was so nice to meet you, and maybe we'll have some mutual clients again in the future. That will be
I hope
wonderful.
so.
Sophie, any more questions?
No, I'm very, this was a great podcast. I really had a great time talking to you. So.
Thank you.
So interesting to learn all the different aspects of the dog business.
Like as I told you, I kind of dabbled. So I love hearing your perspective, because my perspective as dog walker was completely different, because it was very rough and kind of on the newer side of the area that I was in. So I love to hear all your new information and all the steps that you've taken to like make sure that everyone's happy. Humans happy, dogs happy, workers are happy, everyone's safe. It's great.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
So guys, we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us. I think we have a few more guests lined up for this year, for this season, and then we're going to take a little time off, because remember, we're moving.
Yep.
So we're going to wind this season up. Have you thought about the season finale?
No, not yet. We're getting close though. Surprised, like it felt like we just started back up again. So.
I think we should have Poppy on, is what I think. Maybe Jen. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Dog for Thought is written and hosted by me, Sarah Brown, co-hosted by Sophie Brown, produced, edited, and original music by Jacob Brown. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.